Welcome back to the Catapult Effect podcast. I am your host, Katie Wrigley. I am bringing back a guest for the first time in a very long time, and I am so excited to introduce you to Maverick Schippmann. He is 20 years old, and I want you to know that you are hearing him here for one of the first times before this man takes off. He is capable of amazing things, and I am so excited to watch him on his journey and share the journey with you today. So stay tuned. That is coming right up.
Welcome to the Catapult Effect, a podcast where professionals like you turn challenges into opportunities for extraordinary growth. If you're tired of struggling, feeling lost, and ready to catapult yourself into the best version of you, then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Katie Wrigley.
Maverick Schippmann. He is a 20-year-old who turned adversity into purpose. He had a skydiving accident right after high school and ended his college football career, but Maverick has rebuilt his life by traveling the world and inspiring others to live fully before it's too late. Welcome to the Catapult Effect, Maverick. I am so psyched to have you here with me today.
Thanks for having me, Coach Kate.
So actually, full disclosure to the audience, I've actually known Maverick and his family for over 20 years. I actually remember when his parents announced that they were pregnant with him. So when I had the opportunity to work with him as an adult, I jumped at it, and I was absolutely thrilled that the family trusted me to help you on your journey. And I've been really excited to see your growth over the past several months, Maverick. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So can you tell the audience what your life was like before the skydiving accident and what you were moving towards with football?
Definitely. Yeah, football was my main thing. It was my life. I would say friendships were built around football. Goals were all built around football. And I feel like my life was definitely too one-dimensional, but football was the main focus. And I was planning on going and playing Division I football. And so that was the dream. And I signed May 20th of 2024. And so that was the plan. And at some level, I thought I accomplished that. And then that was my next goal. And what was my next plan was to go play in South Carolina.
And then what actually happened to that plan, Maverick?
That plan did not go according. But that's how life goes. A lot of things don't go according to plan. Only 3 days after I did sign to go play college football, I decided to go skydiving. This was a graduation present, so it was actually the day after my graduation. And my brother is an adrenaline junkie. I'm an adrenaline junkie, but he is a little bit more successful at skydiving than I was. He decided to go and do non-tandem jumps, so we didn't want to, or at least I didn't want to attach to somebody else. Thought I could handle it. Probably should have thought through that process a little bit more, but had an unsuccessful landing, crashed, and definitely hurt myself pretty good.
And what were the injuries that you suffered in that accident, Maverick? How severe were they?
The main one was I tried to catch myself from falling and landing, so I ended up having my elbow come out of my skin. So that was the main worst injury. But I broke my nose, my wrist, my ankle, bruised my intestines. I knocked myself out very, very good as well, and then ended up spending the next week and a half in the hospital.
And they had to care flight you, take a helicopter to get you to the hospital, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and those who are not familiar with more severe accidents, if you need a helicopter ride, you're not having a good day.
No. Absolutely not.
They use those if there's a chance you aren't going to survive by ambulance. So when the helicopter comes for you, yeah, not a good day at all. So what were the months like and weeks like after that accident, Maverick? What were some of the things that you were starting to notice that had changed from before that accident?
Yeah, my mindset was immediately recovery. I would say I spent the week and a half in the hospital, but I was still struggling with some things because my teeth came through my mouth. So I was unable to, it was not a fun experience, but I was unable to eat and keep food down. So then my sodium levels were all messed up. So I ended up throwing up, and I was just in a bad state for a couple of weeks. But immediately as I started to feel better, I remember just the mindset was recovery, heal as quickly as I can. I got back in the gym. I mean, 3 days after I got home from the hospital. So, and doing as much as I could. I wasn't being not smart about it. I was pushing myself, but also staying within my limits. But the main focus was recovery as much as possible. And my main goal was still to go, and the next month was to go and play at that Division 1 level. Obviously, I knew that that season was probably not going to happen, but my main goal was to still be out there, be with the team, and so I wanted to recover as fast as I could, so I could be in the best state to be with them.
Nice. And we didn't call it out specifically, but did they diagnose you with any sort of head injury at all, like concussion, TBI?
Because I got knocked out, and the time and duration that I was knocked out was between 3 and 7 minutes, something like that. There was a lot going on. So what I have heard is as I was knocked out for as little as 3 minutes, and I've also heard somebody tell me that I was knocked out for 7 minutes. Obviously, I don't remember any of that, but because I was knocked out for so long, they definitely diagnosed me with a severe concussion.
Yeah, and I wanted to point that out because so often we don't correlate some of the things that happen after an accident, especially one with a severe head injury like yours, with some of the changes that occur. And so I wanted to make sure that we called that out as you're sharing the story. So you're ready to go to this Division 1 school, trying to get yourself in the best shape. And then, so you actually did go to that college, correct?
That's right.
All right. And then what happened once you got there, Mav?
Yeah, I left before the football season. Season normally starts like mid-August, and then classes they really pick up mid-August as well. My duration at that school was only 2 weeks. I stayed just over the summer. I just had one class, but I was having a hard time. Absolutely, I wasn't able to do the workouts with the team. I wasn't able to participate in the team activities. I felt like I was in this small little prison dorm cell, and it wasn't feeling like it was aligning with me and what I wanted to do. Um, I think I didn't think that decision through with leaving or anything like that. I wasn't really talking to my parents about it. I stayed only 2 weeks, and yeah, one night I just got fed up and I packed my things up and I just left. And then I ended up going to my girlfriend at the time's house and kind of just camping out there for 2 days before I even got the courage to tell my parents. So no, not my proudest moments or that my proudest time in my past, but it's allowed me to grow.
And then what happened over the next couple months from that point where you had left the school to the point where you had reached out to me for help?
Yeah, I was working a couple different jobs. I think trying to find purpose is a good way to put it. I was feeling extremely lost, especially with I had this purpose before I left, and that purpose was to play football. I felt like I was a part of the community. I was contributing to the community. I was known in the community, and it felt good. I had a piece of me that was fulfilled, and when I returned, I almost felt very shameful and very guilty, and just not proud of myself for one abandoning what my mission and my goal was, but also just coming back to not having that same purpose, not having that same community to be around, not having the same things to do. So it was very tough for me. I immediately started trying to work a couple different jobs. I mean, that varied from personal training to roof contracting, just doing whatever I possibly could to see what my new thing was, because at that point I thought it wasn't football anymore. And so none of those gave me that same fulfillment that football was before I had the accident and before I left for that school at the time.
And I want to pause in your story here because what you experienced is really, really common when someone's either had an emotional or a physical trauma. And when you're talking about the level of accident that you had, where your life was literally on the line and you could have died, that's considered an emotional and a physical trauma at the same time because the emotions are high. And the thing that we like to overlook is we're one human, one body, everything's happening in here all at the same time, and nothing is happening in a silo. And it's common to feel like we're lost, have that loss of identity, especially when you feel like you can't do the thing that you've been focused on. But even with people who don't have that same disruption like you did in football, they can still have that same feeling of loss after a significant trauma, like what you had experienced. So I just wanted to kind of pause there to help highlight some of those things. And then before we start to get into the work that we did, what happened to the relationships in your life in that time? Did they get better? Did they get worse? Like, what were you noticing about the people who had been your support group around you and your biggest cheerleaders?
Yeah, the relationships definitely went downhill. I'd say mainly because the relationship with myself went downhill first. And because I wasn't there for myself, because I was not loving myself, I wasn't able to be there for others or love others at all. And it definitely did not help my relationships. They got worse.
Yeah. And again, that's a common outcome from trauma is we can lose ourselves. We can stop to care for ourselves. And part of that is physiological. A lot of the brain function goes to the right side of emotive side of the brain. So it doesn't mean then that's also where the creativity side is, but it doesn't tend to mean that you're suddenly more creative. It tends to mean that you're more explosive, you're more moody, you're more depressed, you're more irritable, you're more angry. Those tend to be the things that come up after a physical or emotional trauma, or in your case, both. So would you say that was kind of true with what you're experiencing at the time, like pretty short fuse, and it gets really hard to be around that person from the people who love you because you're showing up differently and they don't understand why or what's happening too. And so there's kind of multiple things adding in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say every single one that you listed, I would say I resonate with all of it. And I can only imagine. And now looking back, now feeling like I've healed and growing and on that path of healing and growing and improving, I look back and I'm just like, it's definitely tough. I feel bad that I put my family through that, and I feel bad that but it's also hard to say because I wasn't able to show up for myself because I was truly experiencing something that I just didn't understand at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And no one really understands that when we're in it. You know, even with the expertise I have, I still catch myself of like, okay, this is what's going on. Dive into the compassion here. When it's in my personal life. With my work life, that's one thing. So as we started to work together, Maverick, what did you notice start to change for you?
I'd say the number one thing was that I felt like a weight had been lifted off of my chest because for a long time I felt like I was suppressing what had happened and what I was experiencing and what I had gone through. But I feel like once I started to acknowledge the trauma, once I started to acknowledge the pain, the hardship, all of the above, I felt like the amount of freedom that I felt from that was extremely nice. And it was a great weight lifted off of my chest because I wasn't suppressing anymore. I knew it was going to be a lot of work, but I was acknowledging the trauma, acknowledging the pain. And then once you acknowledge it, you can work through it.
Yeah, that's a really great way to word that. So as we started to work together, what else started to shift in your life, Maverick, that's led you to these world travels that you are now embarking on?
A lot changed. I started asking myself, and with your help, of course, asking myself what I really wanted rather than what I thought my family wanted for me or what the community wanted for me or what I had kind of the sunk cost fallacy of I've already put so much effort and time into this that I have to keep going with it. I felt like that at some points, and you helped me. And with our work, I was able to actually ask myself, what did I really want, and get to the deep root of that to start doing these world travels and to start listening to my intuition and start listening to the higher calling that I felt, which is to go do this and see the world and start a new business with my brother and all of these things that I thought weren't possible until I was going to finish college football or do the things that other people wanted of me.
And I'm so psyched for the work that you've done. I want to dive more into that. And I also want to point out, if I'm remembering correctly, and if I'm not, please correct me on here. We did some work around the identity around you as a football player and some of the things that football gave you. And some of the things that you really loved with football is the camaraderie. It was the team members. It was the feeling of knowing that you were a part of something. It was being a leader. It was a lot of these things that you actually realized, oh, I can have these without playing football. And I want to point out, when people have had the level of injury that you've had, we start to look at things like football very differently. We start to honor and look at our bodies very differently when we've lost the ability to do something. Like, that's our kind of like, oh shit, I'm not immortal. I am breakable. Shit can happen to me. Ooh, what do I want to do with this? And so I'm curious, like, what was that process like for you, Maverick, as you worked through these things and started to connect to these pieces that were the most important pieces of football for you?
I think the note of you saying that I am breakable and I am not invincible is very important to note, because I think every young man and every young person kind of has that mindset and mentality of, oh, I feel great. My testosterone's speaking, it almost feels like you can't be broken. And that was a very humbling experience for me, was to be reminded that I am not invincible. And I do have a time clock that's ticking, and I do want to be able to use my body when I am older. So I don't want to push past or push through anything like that. And not only just the physical, but of course the mental. And I was totally neglecting that for a very long time, until you and I did do that and started to do the work together, which was something, and it was a piece of the puzzle that is so important, but I felt like was totally neglected, and I didn't honor it as much as I should have, and as much as I do now.
And I want to commend you for the level of awareness that you have, Maverick. And I know we've talked about this in our conversations between sessions, of how I really wish that I had had the ability to look at the future me when I had been your age at the level that you do. Like, you are so good about taking care of your future self now. And that's something I wasn't even introduced to, that concept, until I was in my late 40s. And so for you to be learning that in your late teens and early 20s, like, that's one of the things that makes me so excited to watch where you're going to go on this journey, is because you're so aware of, hey, I want to be careful with what I'm doing with my body now, so that I still want to get out of bed and I'm not creaking and crunching and feeling all the things as I get into my 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and beyond. And to me, like, there can sometimes be a balance. I'm curious what you think about this, where we want to make sure that we're taking care of that future self, but we're also aware that we may not get that future self. Like, we don't know how much time we have here. And so what's that balance been for you, Mav?
Yeah, thank you for saying that about the awareness. I feel like our work has definitely helped lead to that awareness. I was definitely in the state of pushing through, and kind of, I feel like a lot of men too, in this day and age and this reality that they live in, they feel like they neglect themselves to stay in their masculine frame, when taking care of yourself is what is truly masculine, and showing up for yourself and doing the work that you need to do, even though working with somebody, even if it is a therapist, or if it is a coach, or if it is somebody who's going to offer an extra resource for them, a lot of them neglect that, when in reality, showing up for themselves is what they need and what their family needs them to do as well.
Thank you for that. I really love that you pointed that out. And I have one last question about our work before we dive into the travels, because that's the really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So, because we kind of had a laugh about this, but what had your first impression been when you had heard about me and this crazy ass looking ball that I have that's a part of my work?
Of course, it's super important to note, because that was my mindset before, and I was totally thinking, oh, what's this hippie chick with a ball gonna help me with, and how is a little ball with a bunch of colors and a couple of things that I didn't know this. Yeah, thank you for having me, because I almost brought mine. And having these things on the ball that I didn't even know at the time what they meant or what they were, when these different colors, what is this hippie lady going to help me with? And I had no idea, and it's absolutely transformed my life. So I couldn't be more grateful.
And it cracks me up, because so many people go through that, myself included. Like, I remember thinking, what is this wacky looking ball going to do for me? But it was so much more appealing than the surgeon's knife. So I gave it a go.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that doubtfulness, that skepticism, that's a pretty real part of the whole process of getting introduced to
I want to
cognitive.
note, though, I want to note and encourage anybody who is listening to this, that what hurts you, or what takes away from you from at least trying, because that was my mentality is, okay, at least I'll try this. I'm not having a good time and I'm not doing okay. And I remember a conversation that I had with my dad at the time. And I just sat him down, and it did take courage for me to say it, but it was really hard for me to say it. I just said, I'm not okay. I remember saying, I am not okay. And I wasn't feeling okay. And I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I just remember being not okay and not feeling right. And I just want to encourage anybody, if you and the people who are listening to this, if you're on the fence of starting something like this, at least try, because the worst thing that you could experience is that it's not for you, but definitely try it.
Thank you for that, Maverick. Thank you so much for joining me for this part 1 interview with Maverick Schippmann, an absolutely incredible 20-year-old who is going major places in life. So in today's episode, he talked a little bit about his journey and how a skydiving accident completely derailed his plans for college football, and how our work together helped him find and go into a new path in life that has been leading him to travels all over the world. Come back again for part 2, where Maverick is going to tell you more about those travels and some of the things that he has learned along the way. Then we're going to talk about the incredible company that he and his brother McGuire have called Untamed Outfitters, and Maverick's new ebook that is going to be coming out in 2026. So join me again for part 2. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend and leave a 5-star review, which helps grow the podcast and reach others just like you. While you're at it, connect with Katie on social media. You can find her on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram as @CoachKTDubs. That's CoachKTDubs. This has been the Catapult Effect with Katie Wrigley. Thanks for listening.